All right, guys. So I've been doing little finishing things, just little things to the car. Don't have any real big progress done. I still haven't even finished tuning the engine to take it out and drive it. Test drive it around the housing edition was what my big goal was. Man, excuse me, just ate dinner. So I did get all of the wiring done on the car. So I'm pretty happy that that's done, because it was a royal pain to get the headlights and turn signals and everything all wired up here. The way I did it, I should say. I did get asked about the hidden wiring stuff, so I'll run you guys through that. So what I'm working on now, listen, you'll hear a train if you didn't. Here it is. My brother gets a kick out of that. He thinks it's funny when the train horn blows in my videos. So the only thing that I really run into on the wiring part of it is, there's actually two things, but one of them I'm not really worried about. But this one, this is the antenna cord cable for my fender mount antenna I installed. This is actually, by the time I bend this, that's where it bends at. So I've got way too much coming out the back, and my radio is mounted in the glove box. It's way too close to my heater box, so I don't have that much room. So I got on eBay this morning and I found a 90-degree adapter, and that will work perfectly. So I ordered that. It was like $8 or something. But anyway, I need to do the adapter on there and then, you know, coil up the wire and zip tie it up under there. But I got my kick panel and my screen installed on this side, so now my upholstered kick panels are done. So I got the weather stripping on this door, and this door for the first day or two was really difficult to shut. Today it's a little bit easier to close, but it's still got tension on it. So, you know, it's going to take it a little bit, especially now that it's fall weather. It's just going to take it a little longer. But you know, once you put new door rubber on, it's usually pretty hard to close the doors. And that one actually, it's actually got the door popped out up here at the front pretty good. So I'll show you that in a minute. But anyway, I got the door glass and the quarter glass final adjusted. I've got a perfect gap from my frame to frame in between. So I went ahead and bolted on or screwed on my access panel here. I used some stainless steel number 8 Phillips screws. And I actually used kill mat on the back of that. Originally, like your access panel that screws on here, and you know, there's one up here as well. You probably better see them on this door. So you got a little one up here and you got a big one back there, and then you got one on the rear on a 2-door. So, or there's one on each side, but you get what I'm saying. They usually, the factory, put on some kind of goopy stuff on there, and it's to seal it, but also to keep it from rattling. So what I learned a long time ago, I restored one of these cars back when I was really young, and I, you know, painted all the inside and everything, blasted the panels and painted them and everything, and I just put them on there dry. And those things vibrated when that car was idling, sitting there idling, you know, in gear. It would just vibrate. So I ended up having to take them off, and I used some foam sponge seal from like hardware store and took the panel off, put foam tape on the back. You know, it's thin and it's real squishy, so by the time you screw it on, it flattens it out. But that's kind of what I was planning on using on here, and then I come up with a better idea that I think will work better, and I'll show you guys that. But access panel's on, that side panel's on permanently. So now I need to finish putting my felt strip on my garnish moldings, and then I can put the garnish molding on here and put the window crank on. But that is, in case you didn't see the video of me upholstering that, that is pretty much what the upholstery is. It's black and the original gray pattern straw cloth. So I am getting there, man. I am so happy. The car's coming together. It has been a heck of a ride, let me tell you. So I got the illumination wires done on the gauges here. So now all the wiring's done other than that antenna cable. Now there is one other thing I need to do for the wiring, but I'm not really worried about it. It's one of those deals where I may or may not ever put it on there, who knows. I never did buy the backup light switch that goes on the column for your backup lights to work when you put the car in reverse, because, you know, I have a different transmission than the factory one. The original transmissions in these cars, the automatics, went from park, neutral, drive, low, reverse. With a, you know, like a turbo 350, turbo 400, or 700 R4 like I have. It's park, reverse, neutral, drive, you know, third gear, second gear, first gear. So anyway, I was going to buy the switch, and I was going to buy the backup light harness and install it, but I never did buy it, and I never did buy the switch. You know, it's going to be a couple $100 worth of stuff. I just never did it because I don't know that any of my 55s ever had backup lights on them anyway. But anyway, it's something I could put in, and I may put it in later, but right now it's just not top priority. I'm not too worried about it. So anyway, that is pretty much it for the wiring other than the antenna cable for what I'm going to do. Now, to finish up this side of the car, I have a thing here with the door glass to the quarter window frame. I'm a lot tighter up here than I am down here. So what I'm gonna do, that's why I rolled the window back down. There's Phillips screws in your track here. These are slotted this way. Your slotted holes for your screws. So this is adjustable this way or this way a little bit, and I just need a little bit. So I'm going to loosen those off and move that back and then tighten it back down. It should be good. And at that point, I'll be ready to put that access panel on this side. But man, it is getting there. I will tell you guys something. I'm glad I went back and checked. It is a good thing to do when you're like this on a car build, like a 55 or a 6 or 7, and you have your little emblems like this. You need to make sure that those clips are tight on your crest and your script, because if they're loose, they will also vibrate when the car's in gear. So this one had 2 clips that were, I mean, I put them on, but they were just a little bit loose, so I had to go in there and further, you know, put a little bit more pressure on them to get them tight. Because once you put your access panel on and your cover and all that, you don't have no more access to get to those. So I went back and checked those, and I'm glad I did, because I had a couple of them loose. What I use is a deep well 1/4-inch socket. It's for a 1/4-inch ratchet, but it is, I think it was like a 6mm or something, real bitty tiny socket, you know, in the end, but it's deep. And I stick it over the studs on those, and then hold the emblem with one hand, push on this side, and then push the socket on the other, and it'll really help get them clips seated down on there real tight. But now the emblems are nice and tight, so now I can button all that up. But anyway, I still need to put the door rubber on this side, so I'm just kind of hit and miss working on stuff here and there. But I basically started on that side and just decided to work it, you know what I mean? So now I'm going to run you through the wiring harness on the car, because I did get a question about it. So I have hidden wiring in the car, and it's I'm going to show you how I routed it, which is, you know, a lot of people have done this, but I do it a little bit differently. I don't know, about 14 years ago or so, I done a 56 Chevy, which I ended up selling it before I finished it. But I went to a salvage, and I found one of these convoluted rubber grommets here on the ground. I don't know what it was from, but I picked it up, and I installed it in the firewall to the inner fender right there. So my headlight wiring, turn signal wiring, all the front wiring of the car goes through that. So you don't see any wires coming through. Now from the factory, like on 55s, they had a few holes drilled in the inner fender, and they had little metal clips, and your wiring harness just run right across here. So I welded all those holes up and got rid of that. I also got rid of all the raised indents, the unused holes, and all the awkward looking stuff on the inner fenders. Mine are completely smooth, but they still look stock. Like even up here at the front, there's like a sunk in indent part that a grommet goes in that the factory wiring comes through, and I cut all that out and reshaped a piece to match and butt welded it in and ground both sides. So it just looks like a smooth factory inner fender. So anyway, my wiring harness is going through that grommet. I used a hole saw on the firewall and a hole saw on the inner fender. And the inner fenders themselves, I used 1/4 by 20 bolts that were 3/8 of an inch long, and I welded the heads of the bolt to the inner fender at the back side of it. So they've got 1 or 2, I think, coming up at the back. Then there's a bunch along the top up here going down toward the park light. So that allowed me to use those aluminum rubber isolated loom clamps that you can get at a hardware store or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. And then I used stainless steel nylon lock nuts to bolt those clamps to that. But you can put your wiring harness through those clamps and then bolt it on. So my harness is running up inside the inner fender up through here. Now, right here, I used a step bit behind this radiator top bar. This is open on the bottom, it's hollow. So I used put a hole in the inner fender right there. I put another one in the tube right here. I separated my top bar from my bottom bar on my core support. I had those completely apart from each other. And I drilled a hole in it, drilled a hole in there. I drilled another hole in this one, drilled another hole in this one. That way the wiring can pass through the whole thing. Now what I used was the factory replacement rubber grommet set that you can buy that your factory wiring goes through on the front of your car. So I used the same size hole as factory and used those replacement grommets. So now the wiring's going through all rubber grommets on everything. But on the bottom of this core support, while I had it apart, I welded more of those 1/4 by 20 bolts heads to the bottom of that core support bar, and I have those rubber isolated aluminum clamps under there. So if you are going to do that, I'm going to give you some advice here. When you go to weld your bolt under here for those aluminum clamps, don't put it dead middle, because you won't be able to put your clamp on. Those clamps are offset, the hole's on one side, so you need to put the bolt offset to one side. So make sure you mock up a clamp with the bolt before you start welding them on there. But anyway, so that's how that is all done there. But the wiring is completely hidden. You don't see any wires on this car. You just see hoses, and I like that. Very, very clean and well done. The worst part was it took me several hours to wire the front of the car, because I had to basically run one wire at a time through all this crap and then get another wire and run it through all that crap. It was a pain in the butt. So, but I'm glad I did it, because it was worth it. You know what I mean? Like my horn wires, that's all you see of the horn wire right there, because I drilled a hole and put a rubber grommet in the bracket for the horn. That is not factory. They just went in through a big hole with a grommet in the firewall, or in the front baffles here, which these are custom made. But anyway, on the back side here, I'll show you. So this is square tubing right here, and I've got studs welded to it, and I've got 2 nuts that go in from the inside of the core support to bolt these on. That is for the wiring for the horn to come up through there, so you don't see so much wire. You only see that little bitty bit right there. Had I have put some black heat shrink right here, you wouldn't even have seen that. It would have disappeared in the black. But that is pretty much what it looks like after everything's hooked up. You don't see anything, and I think that's pretty awesome. So I got my windshield washer assembly finished and installed. Now before I hooked my hose up, I did turn the key on and check the button. So the button is working, it's operating the motor. This is all custom. This looks like a factory setup, and this is all 100% customized. So this is an ANCO universal windshield washer pump. It's like 15 bucks. I just put an old school GM logo on it. This is a Buick, mid-50s Buick windshield washer jar bracket, because I like the Buick one better than the Chevy. The Chevy one looks cheap. The Buick one looks a little bit more cool, and then I drilled speed holes in it to make it look better. This is a factory glass jar, like the car would have had, and Buicks and Cadillacs and Oldsmobiles as well. Now the lid is a factory lid, but I actually panel bonded on a piece of sheet metal. It's actually plate. It's a little bit thicker stuff, but I panel bonded it on, and that way it allowed me to orient this stuff up here the way I wanted it, so it's symmetrical, because these are not like this from the factory. These take these funky stuff on the top for the motor thing and all this garbage up here, and I have zero experience in rebuilding those or sending them off, having them done. So this is the way I do it, is this way. But anyway, this is just your basic power and ground wiper motor, washer motor, and it's a suction. It's fluid one way and fluid out, and that's it. And anyway, so it's all finished out. I put a reproduction decal on it, so it just looks 100% stock. Now I've also got a rubber grommet with a hole drilled in the inner fender here for the hose to come through. The hose is actually with the wiring harness for the front of the car coming up through here, but it runs along with it. And I drilled a hole in the firewall up high with a rubber grommet, and there's also a hole in the inner fender back here where it curves around, and there's another grommet there, so the hose passes through to go into here. Then I have a T, little plastic T, and it goes to the squirter nozzles on each side. So anyway, that windshield washer system will work, and I've got all the stuff to do my wife's car with a factory correct 210 knob, because her 55 four-door is a 210 series. My Bel Air has a stainless cover. So Don from Don's Hot Rod Garage commented, he wanted to know where I got the covers from on my pull vent cables for my floor vents here. These are stainless caps. These are radio knob covers, and I just ground the back bent over edge off, and then pulled the cover off and panel bonded it onto these. So, because Bel Airs have stainless, full stainless covers. 210s have an open area with a black center. They still have stainless ring around them, but it just always looked funny to me to have a black pull vent cable on a Bel Air with stainless knobs everywhere else. So, I have a how-to video on my playlist. If you go to my channel, click on playlists, and then go to Try 5 Tech Tips, and I show how to do that. There's also a video on how to modify this and all the parts, part numbers, and everything I used on that. I've got a momentary push button that actually screws to the back of the factory push button in the wiper knob, and it actually works like factory. So, pretty neat stuff. But it's, again, all budget stuff. It's a lot of work. I put a lot of time in it. But as far as parts-wise, it's pretty cheap to do. So, anyway, I'm getting really close, guys. It is, you know, finishing up all this little tedious stuff is just part of it. And I really wanted to get a lot of this stuff tidied up before the car got running good and drivable, because I'll find myself coming out every day wanting to take it out and drive it around. There'll be a lot of people looking at it and seeing it, and it won't be finished. So I kind of wanted to get a little bit more stuff on it. But I've showed that before. My magnetic entertainment center clicker on my gas door. I welded up the old, or welded in a piece of patch to get rid of that little notch in there for your finger to get behind the gas door. What else? Okay, so here, the access panels that go in there. This is what I'm doing to this car. I'll probably do it to my wife's car as well. These are the rear access panels that go back there. And from the factory, they put some stuff around here to seal this to the body and also keep it from rattling. So I used Kill Mat. And, you know, that should work for both. It won't let it rattle, and it'll seal it as well, because this stuff's kind of thick. It's almost pretty much like butyl is all it is. Just a big old thing of butyl with a backing on it is pretty much all that stuff is. But I'm out of the black chrome Dynamat. I used every bit of it I had on this car. And I have it, the whole floor is covered in it, the firewall and the roof. That's why the roof sounds like that. The whole entire roof is covered. I didn't just do sections in it. It's like the whole roof. So if I ever get into a bad rainstorm somewhere, it's going to be quiet in the car. That'll be kind of nice. But anyway, another thing I need to clarify is, you know, once I start driving this car quite a bit, turn it into an average driver, which is eventually what this car is going to be, I'm going to take it easy with it my first season for shows. But after that, it's open season on this thing. It's going to be driven a lot. Now, there's lots of shows that I want to go to, but they're out of state. So more than likely, I'm going to get caught in the rain. And I don't care, because the way I built the car, you know, everything's done inside and out in the car. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, it is built to get wet. But, you know, as well as I do, that once a car gets rained on, it makes a mess. Especially if you're going to show the car by putting mirrors under it and that type of stuff. If you drive a car in the rain, when you get under it to clean it, you're in for one hell of a amount of work. It splashes stuff all over the bottom side of a car. So it spots the exhaust up. I mean, it does everything. So that's why I'm going to take it easy for like my first show season and try to, you know, not drive it in the rain. But if I got caught in the rain, it's not a big deal. But that windshield washer system will work when that day comes. What else? I ran into an issue with my forward body mount covers I custom made. You guys have watched the channel long enough, you've seen those. They will not work on this car. I can't get them to work. When I mocked the car up, I never did build those covers. Those covers were like an afterthought. And when I went to try to put them on here the other day, the inner fenders actually, there's this raised section in the back of the inner fender that your bracket goes to, and it actually goes inside this channel a little bit. So my covers will not work. They hit the inner fender. So I can't even get them in there without chewing the paint off of them. And it'd be metal on metal and probably squeak and rattle and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to have to come up with something different, which I'm probably going to have to cut those up, put a relief section in the body mount cover, and then try to refit them. So it's going to be a bit of a mess. So I ended up having to reorganize my battery cable, which that was going to be part of the body mount cover with rubber grommets to hold it in place. So since I can't put the body mount cover on, I ended up having to do two black T-clamps there. Those are black plastic clamps, and I've got 12-point ARPs in there. So today I had to drill 2 holes in the firewall and bolt those clamps in there for that cable. But anyway, that battery cable is not going anywhere. So anyway, that's just another thing that's about done. So I can't put my rear splash aprons in because for whatever reason, I didn't have the bolts for it. Mine is all customized for 12-point ARPs. I've got square nuts welded to everything. So it will take a 1/4x20 12-point stainless steel ARP bolt. And it takes 5 per side. And I didn't have those, so that was another thing I ordered this morning. Was I actually ordered 4 or 5 packs of those bolts because there's another couple of things I need them for, so I can't put my rear panels on here. Now, I'll show you this. Originally, these cars have a sponge, foamy, crappy seal that goes in here, and I don't like those things. Once they start getting dirty, they're just a mess. This is a trunk rubber seal for a G-body, and it has a metal channel, and it clips on to the edge of that inner fender. But when it's on there, it looks awesome, and it is, you know, it's shaped like this, but it's very, very spongy. So it fits the inner fender to the fender very well. So it was an excellent use of a G-body trunk rubber seal is on that section of the inner fender. So it comes all the way up to here and goes around, and it just looks fantastic. So anyway, that's what I ended up using. What else? What else? So when I put the door rubber on here, I had to slam the living crap out of the door. Like, it didn't shut like the first 3 times, and I finally had to slam the living fire out of it. This is actually sticking out a little bit from the windshield stainless, just a little bit. And it's also got the front of the door from about here, still trying to find it, about here, up here. So the door's sticking out just a little bit, but I'm not going to readjust because over time that will relax and it'll start fitting. Now today it's actually closing a lot easier, and it's been on there for a few days already. So anyway, it just kind of sucks. You know, you put on new door rubber and you got to slam the crap out of the doors to, you know, to get them to close. But another thing I'm working on, I have been doing video clips of this, so I will eventually put that in a video here in the future. But this is a factory guide bracket for your trunk lid, and it bolts on here. And I put this tail pan in this car because I had accident damage on this rear quarter over here, so I had to replace some of this. But I got the measurement for this bracket that you weld to your tail pan from a 4-door. And I don't know how I got it off, but I got it off pretty good, probably almost a 1/4 inch. So I tried slotting this, but it just wasn't enough. And this is a hideous bracket anyway. This thing is ugly from the factory. And I've cut the guide pin off there. This has a guide pin that comes in there. It sets on an angle. But I cut that off so I could get my Sharpie to fit down in there to draw a mark. But I ended up building a whole new one out of stainless steel. And I don't have the pin welded to this yet because I want to finish polishing this. But anyway, this is a stainless steel guide pin bracket that is custom made to fit my car. So anyway, that will bolt on up here, and it'll be fully polished stainless, so it'll look like a piece of chrome. But anyway, that is the guide pin that goes into your bracket back here. Now, if you don't have this on your car, what can happen is your trunk lid can move side to side when you're driving the vehicle, you know, if you go down a rough road or whatever, and it can chip your paint. That guide pin keeps that trunk lid from going side to side. So the biggest thing, if you don't have that, the reason it does that is you have this little bitty thin claw on your latch, and you have this wide slot right here. So you have a lot of room for your trunk to go side to side, so you have to have that pin. But in my application, I got the measurement wrong, so I had to custom build my own. That's why it's offset to one side. But anyway, that is going to be pretty cool. And that is the only piece of stainless I had. It's pretty thick, but it'll end up working out. That's the only piece of stainless plate I had, and it was that thick. But that pin right there, I haven't even buffed that yet. I did that with sandpaper, and that is the remnants of an ARP 12-point bolt. I cut the shoulder out of it, and that is what I shaped to use for a guide pin on that. But anyway, that'll be kind of nice to have that on there, because if I start driving the car and I didn't have that in there, it'd probably end up chipping my paint, because my gaps, I've gapped the car really good, and I don't want to chip the paint up, because if you chip up back here, it's repaint for the whole back half of the car, you know what I mean? What else? What else? I got asked by somebody again what my tire size is, wheel size and all that, and I got to tell you, I get asked this almost every video. My application of stuff on my wheels and tires in this car are not going to apply to other Tri-5s. The rear end I have here is narrower than stock by quite a bit, and I moved my lower control arms in almost 1/4 of an inch. So I think it was 1/4 inch. I moved the A-arms inboard, the lower A-arms inboard. And the reason was the wheels that I picked out, if I hadn't moved that extra 1/4 inch, the wheels I would have ended up with were completely flat-faced wheels. And I don't like wheels without a lip on them. So to get a lip on the front wheel, that's what I had to do. But anyway, the back spacing is all in millimeters, and I had to convert that on a calculator because I do thing in inches here. But I could not tell you what the back spacing is. All I can tell you is that is a 17 by 7, and that is an 18 by 9.5. And I don't know what the tire size is off the top of my head. I'd have to get down there and read it. But it's not like you can get this exact wheel and tire size and bolt it right on your car. It's probably not going to fit. Now, no doubt the tires and stuff probably will, but your rims, you know, everything will be different because I moved the front end in and I've got a narrower than stock rear. I got a 9.5 inch wheel on this car. I have the leaf springs in the factory location, and it is not mini tubbed. And I have space to get my finger into the leaf spring between the back of the tire, and I can get my hand up through here. So there's 9.5 inches. It's probably, I don't know, maybe close to 10 on the tread of itself, or the tire. So, you know, when you got a low profile, big wheel and low profile tire, you can get away with that. But when you run like a 15-inch rim, and then you go to put big, tall, fat meats on it, you have a really thick sidewall that balloons out. So that's where you get into trouble, but that's how I get away with that. I like my cars lowered, and I like low profile tires. I don't like Band-Aid, really thin wall tires, like, you know, a sidewall this tall. I'm not into that. It makes the cars ride rough. You bend your rims. I like them to have a little bit of meat on them. So these tires actually have a pretty good sidewall on them. But these wheels, they don't look like they're 9.5 inches wide, and it's because the hub center is like this thick, where they bolt onto the flange. So I thought when I bought the wheels I was going to have another inch of depth on the rim center with, you know, all that lip, but it didn't work out because of the thickness of the wheel center. So kind of sucks, because you're standing here, the wheel don't look like it's wide, but it actually pretty fat tire under there. But anyway, they're Weld RTS, and you can see the spacing off the back of the leaf spring right there. But anyway, what else? I guess that's about it, guys. That's probably enough. I'm gonna jump off here, post this video. I'm sorry the video's so long, but I tried to cover a little bit of stuff, but I'm still working on it. And I've got a long list here, and I'm just slowly knocking it out. And then I'll get onto it and get it tuned up. But anyway, if you made it this far, congratulations. Thanks for watching. Sorry the video's almost 30 minutes long.